The Middle East these days feels like a region standing on the edge of a firestorm, where the fragile limits of military restraint, diplomacy, and even humanitarian considerations are being eroded by the hour. Retaliatory actions are unfolding in rapid succession, hardline statements are issued with increasing frequency, and major population centers are shifting into preparedness mode for the worst-case scenario. Together, these developments paint a grim picture of a regional confrontation that could spiral beyond anyone's control. According to international media outlets, including CNN and the Wall Street Journal, Iranian forces have launched dozens of ballistic missiles toward Israel, marking a dramatic escalation not seen since the beginning of the latest wave of military tensions. Large missiles were reportedly fired in dense waves toward Israeli territory, while Iranian state media confirmed the initiation of a large-scale retaliatory campaign in response to what Tehran described as prior airstrikes on its soil and interests. Iran's state television framed the missile launches as a direct response and warned that subsequent strikes could be even more forceful. Regional outlets suggested that anywhere from several dozen to more than 70 missiles were fired almost simultaneously, reflecting a high level of firepower mobilization in the opening phase. Although exact figures remain subject to independent verification, the political message behind the action is unmistakable. Tehran is signaling that it is prepared to raise the level of confrontation to a new threshold. On another front, Yemen's Houthi movement, widely regarded as closely aligned with Iran, has reportedly decided to resume missile and drone attacks, targeting not only international shipping lanes, but also Israel directly. Should this scenario materialize, the Red Sea and surrounding waters could once again be plunged into serious instability, threatening global maritime security and increasing economic costs for nations reliant on these strategic routes. Israel has responded by issuing broad air raid warnings, urging civilians to be ready to seek shelter at short notice when sirens sound. Missile defense systems have been placed on the highest level of alert. Simultaneously, the country's healthcare system has shifted into emergency mode. At Tel Aviv's Sourasky Medical Center and other major hospitals, underground treatment facilities have been activated. Patients not requiring continued inpatient care have been discharged early, while critical departments, particularly intensive care units, have been relocated to reinforced underground spaces. In the north, Rambam Hospital in Haifa has begun clearing underground parking areas to convert them into emergency treatment wards. Authorities have appealed to the public to visit hospitals only in cases of genuine medical emergencies. Every resource is being preserved for the worst-case scenario. Israel's National Emergency Response Organization, Magen David Adom, is coordinating closely with the Home Front Command and the Ministry of Health to transition the entire operational system into wartime footing. These measures suggest that Tel Aviv views the situation not as a symbolic exchange, but as a real and potentially prolonged security threat. The tension extends far beyond Israeli airspace. In the Gulf, Bahrain reportedly activated air defense sirens amid reports of attacks targeting U.S. military facilities in the region. Arab media outlets described explosions and plumes of smoke near the capital, Manama. Some sources indicated that the headquarters of the U.S. Navy's Fifth Fleet may have been a target. The Fifth Fleet, responsible for overseeing maritime security in the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, and adjacent waters, plays a central role in Washington's Middle East military strategy. Any confirmed direct strike against it would elevate the confrontation to an entirely new level, from a primarily bilateral clash between Iran and Israel to the risk of direct engagement between Iran and the United States. Earlier, Israel and the United States were reported to have conducted coordinated airstrikes against certain military targets inside Iran. According to the Wall Street Journal, Washington and Tel Aviv are preparing plans for additional, more intense air operations in the coming days. This suggests readiness for a sustained confrontation rather than a limited exchange intended solely as deterrence. Meanwhile, Israeli media have reported that a senior Iranian general was killed in the wave of airstrikes. If officially confirmed, such a loss would represent a significant blow to Iran's military command structure, particularly at a time when crisis communication channels between the sides appeared to be largely ineffective. Looking more broadly, developments on the ground indicate that the Middle East is sliding rapidly toward a confrontation that extends beyond a two-party conflict. The use of ballistic missiles at high density increases the risk of miscalculation. Each retaliatory move narrows the space for diplomacy. Once previously defined red lines are crossed, restoring the earlier level of restraint becomes far more difficult. Amid the escalating crisis, U.S. President Donald Trump addressed the Iranian people directly. He urged them to stay indoors because conditions outside were dangerous, and suggested that their moment of freedom was approaching. He encouraged them to seize what he described as a historic opportunity to shape their own future. While some interpreted these remarks as supportive, others viewed them as signaling a potential deepening of U.S. involvement in Iran's internal political structure. Here lies a familiar paradox in Washington's foreign policy. Over decades, whenever the United States has declared its intention to intervene in a country in the name of stability and development, the aftermath has often proven far more complex. The experiences of Iraq, Libya, and Afghanistan illustrate that overwhelming military superiority can swiftly alter the balance of power, but building a sustainable political order is an entirely different challenge. The typical intervention model often begins with a rapid military campaign that topples or severely weakens the existing government. However, the subsequent processes, political reconciliation, institution building, disarmament of armed groups, and restoration of economic governance, require time, resources, and deep understanding of local societal structures. These elements are not always adequately prepared or sustained. Another, less frequently discussed but crucial factor is how domestic political and armed groups adjust their strategies to exploit U.S. presence for their own advantage. They may seek aid, consolidate power, or leverage external backing in internal negotiations. When the U.S. withdraws or reduces engagement, the power structures that had depended on external resources often reveal their fragility. In the current context, the pressing question is not only how far Iran and Israel will go in this cycle of retaliation, but also whether a new regional security architecture is taking shape, one based more heavily on military deterrence than on dialogue mechanisms. The Middle East is already burdened with unresolved flashpoints: conflict in Yemen, instability in Syria, tensions in Lebanon, and competition for influence in Iraq. Opening a direct front between Iran and Israel could shake the entire regional chessboard. History shows that military advantage does not automatically translate to political stability. Societies emerging from war often enter periods of deeper polarization, overlapping power structures, and weakened long-term economic growth. If deeper U.S. involvement were to materialize, Iran could face a complex chain of internal shifts, not only from external pressure, but also from internal power realignments. At the same time, all forecasts at this stage carry a high degree of uncertainty. In an environment shaped by psychological warfare and propaganda, the line between deterrence and escalation is thin. A single miscalculation, flawed assessment, or action exceeding initial intentions could propel the region into a far broader conflict. Amid sirens and uncompromising rhetoric, what seems most absent is a credible dialogue mechanism. When crisis communication channels falter and each side equates compromise with weakness, cycles of violence can become self-sustaining. And within that cycle, ordinary people often pay the highest price, through insecurity, economic hardship, and sometimes with their lives. The Middle East stands at a dangerous crossroads. If the parties involved continue to rely primarily on military power to shape regional order, the region may enter another prolonged period of instability. Yet if space for restraint and dialogue still exists, however fragile, it may represent the final opportunity to prevent a crisis from spiraling beyond control.
Thank you for watching this story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe, turn on notifications, and share this video. And now it's time to say goodbye. Thank you for staying with Societal Stories.